say that being in like an MSA office, because I was a huge part of the UFT MSA, was a big part of like my university experience, and I really liked it. But like what I didn't get is that, and this is, I think, just like this is kind of like a side conversation just about MSA culture, I think, and about how student unions represent, well, not student unions, but student clubs kind of represent particular experiences, is that one thing a couple of us noticed throughout our time is that you get a lot of international students who will enter that space, who are looking for a grounding in Islam, who are looking for a way to kind of get involved in what's going on. But then the problem with getting involved, I think, with a student group that is actively involved in what's going on in your city, is that if you're not from the city, you don't know what's happening. You don't know which communities live there. You don't know how to help, right? And so you can sit kind of in an MSA office and listen to what to me is unrelatable ethnic music from different cultures that I don't recognize, and talk about experiences that are foreign to me. And as someone who's born and raised in Scarborough and Toronto and relatively comfortable in Muslim spaces, I'm like, if I'm not comfortable here, not that I'm not comfortable, if I don't feel like what you're listening to or what you're jiving to right now speaks to me, it's not going to speak to anybody else. In the same way that, and this is kind of like still a divergent conversation, but in the same way that when we talk about how relevant our MSA spaces are to our, particularly the Black Muslim community, if the people who are running your MSA are from the Middle East or from elsewhere, they're not going to speak to your community because they don't know, first of all, where they are in the city. They don't know what's going on, and they don't know what people need, and they don't know that that community exists and that they're Muslim. That's the thing, right? You're looking for people who look like you and who speak like you. But if people who look like you and speak like you are from not here, we have a problem.
Often the way leadership happens in our communities is through association.
Yeah.
So you bring in who you know, you train who you know, you mentor who you know. And when we have often very specific communities often holding these places of leadership, then the replacement becomes similarly from that community. And therefore there is an exclusion of Black Muslims, even though the numbers are there. And often, and even now that over the past maybe a year and a half, where we're having extensively these conversations around the need for Black leadership to be part of those, masjid, large organizations, MSAs, leaderships, often the question that comes is like, well, where do we find them? Right?
Yeah.
Where do they exist?
Where do we look?
Right? And my thing is always like, when people are like, oh, we want to have a Black story, we're doing a book around this and we want to have a Black story, or we want a Black panelist on this panel. And then I'm like, that's great, thank you, Jazakallah khair. But the thing is, do you actually have relationship with Black Muslims? Like, is this genuine relationships that you have with Black Muslims? Do you go into Black spaces? Do you go into masjids where, the leadership and the attendees are predominantly Black? Or is it something that do you call us in when you need to sprinkle us, around, for representation? And then the thing is, we are having these conversations in the larger community, like in the mainstream society, and we talk about tokenism and all that, but it also is happening within the Muslim community. Now that we've since 2016 December, we're having a lot of these wonderful conversations. But again, it's when the Muslim, maybe younger Muslim community wakes up and says, oh, I look around and I don't see any Black Muslims in my masjid leadership, in my shura, in my board. Okay, let's find it. And then they come to you and they're like, okay, can you show us the way? And then you're like, are you willing to spend actually years? Are you willing to spend time in knowing the Muslim community? So then you can pull out. So I can easily pull out a South Asian friend, an Arab friend, and because I have relationship with these people, I've spent energy actually going to your weddings and going to your dinners and attending your events and fundraising for you and doing a run for your country's cause. But have you done the same?
When we talk about these elders and those boards that are running the masjids, we just got to go and take it. It's not a matter, that's just my perspective. I don't think it's just to stay here and wait till I get a call let's just go and get it. It doesn't mean you go and you just say, okay, brother, I want to be part of the board. But if it's so difficult for them to actually recognize us and our struggle, then we can do our own thing, And I think like that, if they see, oh, like, you know, BMI, for example, if they say, oh, this is a successful organization and this is what they're doing and this is who they brought in and those are the discussion or whatnot, you'll see people coming and inviting us and getting involved. And I think for the most part, they don't take black people seriously. And when you don't take someone seriously, you don't, why would you go and talk to him or ask him to come to the panel and discuss or ask for their opinion? You know, so it's just a matter of like, you know, us doing our thing, and not our thing, meaning only black people being involved, because we need allies as well. And the Prophet ﷺ, you know, he allied himself for the greater cause. And we have to take example on that, to actually ally ourselves with people who are like-minded, that are not necessarily black, and for the greater cause. So I think, like, let's not wait, you know, for people to give us a call or to, you know, to eradicate certain mind frames. Historically, I don't think it was ever done, especially in the Muslim lands, that, okay, you know what, let's talk about racism. It's just something normal. Okay, darker skinned people, that's what they do. Lighter skinned people, that's what they do.
I think this is where I become very hopeful, in the sense that although the Islam is fixed, the identities are now becoming far more fluid. And I think even the example that you've just provided, sister, is indicative within a homogenous community. I'll give you an example, and this may shift the conversation a little bit, but there was a death recently in the West, and a young brother was shot and killed. One of many, many, unfortunately, now. And I didn't know the brother, but I just moved into a new neighborhood, and the brother that died was shot and killed up the street. So at the janazah, there were maybe 500 young brothers. You could see in their faces, a lot of them, you know, the anger, the frustration that was there. And the leadership chose to talk about sisters wearing their hijabs, and mothers, you know, making tawbah, and you know, and it was a 2-second clip where he said, brothers, this might be you, change your way, and that was it. You know, sisters, your hijabs, mothers, make tawbah. And I was sitting there just flabbergasted, and I'm thinking, the disconnect that exists within this singular community itself, and the inability of this leadership to be able to recognize that this is a prime opportunity to really, really send a message out to these brothers. And if you are, and like, not to discredit, you know, the elders, of course, they've done a tremendous, you know, work in bringing us here and cultivating the foundation where masjids have flourished. However, there's got to be an acknowledgement where they say, hey, you know what? It's time for us to step back and allow a new set of people to kind of connect with these young people. It was so disheartening, and it speaks to the exact same thing. So there's an inability to recognize crises and incidents within a community itself. So the knowledge and the wisdom to connect broadly, to be able to then say, hey, we lack leadership, we lack identity, there's missing people here, and we need some diversity, isn't even there.